Venice is the city of romance and carnivals. In the heart of Venice, behind the beauty, lies a place of pure terror. Meet Poveglia Island. Known as the Gates of Hell, Poveglia Island is steeped in eerie legends and dark history. In a small lagoon, this small island carefully guarded by a marine patrol. No one is allowed to enter it. Meet the creepiest place on Earth, although at first glance you can't say so. The island of Poveglia was originally named Poveglia. According to one legend, this name was given to it because of the dense thickets of poplars that once grew here. Populus is the Greek name for these trees. According to another theory, it was so named in honor of Publio Popilio Lenata, who was famous for building a major Roman road. But whatever the case, today the island is referred to as the Gates of Hell, the Bloody One, the Dump of Pure Fear, or the Haven of Lost Souls. Some believe the very soil is cursed, infused with the pain and suffering of countless lost souls. The Italians themselves say that the ghosts of the people tortured and buried alive here roam it. What secrets does Poveglia Island hide? Dare you find out?
Those who, despite the authorities' ban, still manage to visit the island of Poveglia and return from there say that it is quite eerie. All the houses are in great disrepair. Some of them are beginning to crumble. The bell tower has long been bricked up. There are no streetlights. If you want to illuminate anything, you have to make do with the light of the moon and an old pocket flashlight. The island is literally strewn with traces of human activity. The shutters of the houses have fallen off their hinges and are covered with ivy. Terracotta roofs have collapsed, their remains lying on tile and stone floors. Hospital beds, benches, bedside tables, and surgical instruments can be seen in some rooms. Constant rustles and noises can be heard in the hallways, but perhaps it's lizards and millipedes, of which there are many. However, it is said that sometimes human cries are also seen, although there are no people here except for visitors for a long time.
Poveglia is an island of ghosts, people brought here during the plague and left to die. Some of the sick, particularly injured or already dead, were buried indiscriminately in the ground. Others were left to die without food or drink. According to some reports, more than 16,000 people were buried here. The ground is literally strewn with their ashes, and their souls, they say, never made it to heaven. They wander on the ground, sometimes emitting pitiful moans or eerie screams. The gloomy picture is complemented by the story of a doctor who tortured the patients of the psychiatric clinic, which was also once located here. Of course, the locals deny in every possible way the terrible rumours about Poveglia. They prove that there was and is nothing like that here. But then, why is there a patrol near the island, which does not let anyone through except the lucky ones, who still manage to slip past them? What are they really guarding? Is it the island itself from uninvited visitors, or the people from what happens on it? The island of Poveglia in Italy twice became a refuge for plague patients in 1348 and 1630. Much has been said and even more has been written about the horrors of that time, but it would be hard for a modern person to imagine the nightmare of the real history. People were brought here by the thousands. Those who were seriously ill or had already died were either buried in the ground as they were, or burned on giant bonfires in the hope of stopping the disease. It is said that Poveglia has never forgotten those times. Over 50% of the land is strewn with ashes left behind after the bodies were burned. So people who set foot there for the sake of interest are just walking on corpses, not ashes, not buried and not laid to rest. And the trees and blackberry bushes that have grown here hide the mounds of dead bodies.
Despite all the nightmares that took place on the ghost island, the authorities did not give up trying to use it in any way. In 1922, they opened a psychiatric hospital and brought here mentally ill people. It is worth noting that at that time they included not only crazy people, but also people of unconventional orientation and those unwanted by some powerful person and many others. At least some of the buildings were indeed set aside as a mental hospital, as evidenced by the following inscription and window bars almost completely engulfed by ivy and shrubbery. A vague sense of hospital presence is added to the interior decoration of the room. Dull, peeling paint, bunk beds and stripped cornices, a small chapel with mould-green walls and broken pews located there, completes the picture. The boundaries between interior and exterior space have been practically erased by time. The floor beams have collapsed. The ceiling and window openings are covered with a dense wall of vines. The floor of one of the rooms is covered by 1.5 inches with a dense carpet of book pages. In addition to the living quarters palaces, the fact that Poveglia was a hospital facility is evidenced by the domestic facilities such as the industrial kitchen and laundry. A little further back behind the hospital walls are several houses, probably for staff accommodation. It's very possible that one of them belonged to the Mad Doctor. This staircase is in a building filled with some ominous and intimidating industrial equipment, the purpose of which is hard to explain. It leads up to the roof, where you can see an incredibly beautiful view of the bay through the windows of small observation towers.
The authorities made the head of the hospital quite noble Italian doctor, whose name history keeps silent. At first everything was fine, but after the rumors leaked into the light that the doctor conducts experiments on his wards, using for their treatment innovative drugs and sophisticated therapeutic techniques, and also very fond of giving his patients lobotomies with chisels, hammers, drills, and other similar tools. It is said that a great many of his victims rest on the island. The doctor was especially interested in people who saw the ghosts of plague victims, and there were many of them. Patients who had to spend the night in the hospital often complained about the appearance of strange silhouettes in the air, night whispers, unintelligible sounds, stomping footsteps where there was no one, and screams. But who would believe the stories of mentally ill people? The nursing staff didn't listen to them until they saw the same things. As for the doctor, they say he himself later began to hear ghosts and went mad. One day he fell off the bell tower. No one still knows if it was suicide or if the patients got tired of putting up with his madness. No one knows if the doctor died immediately or not. According to one of the nurses who witnessed the incident, he was still alive for some time, until he was allegedly surrounded by a black shadow and strangled. In 1968, the mental hospital was closed.
After the closure, the building of the psychiatric hospital was not empty for long. And soon the authorities turned it into a geriatric centre, where they sent the elderly and those suffering from Werner's syndrome. But they still saw the same ghosts from the Middle Ages. In 1975, the centre was disbanded and people were sent to other hospitals. It is interesting that after that, various Italian construction crews came here who wanted to restore the buildings by order of the Doge of Venice, but they stopped working after 2 days and went back. The locals say that they were chased away by the dark forces of the island. In 2007, a few guys who were into extreme decided to go to the island of Poveglia. Of course, they had seen pictures of it and read stories about the doctor and other horrors that took place there, but apparently they lacked adrenaline. After they came close to the shore in their boats, all their phones were switched off, as if they had conspired in advance. But it didn't scare the guys much, and they got out of the boat and went deep into the island. As they told themselves afterwards, there was an ominous silence around, which was suddenly broken by an inhuman scream. Frightened, the boys rushed back and, barely starting the engine, set off from the shore. They were accompanied by the distinctive ringing of the bell, which, as it turned out, was removed from the bell tower and taken to the city about 30 years ago. Later, looking at the photos and coming to their senses, the guys noticed a human silhouette on one photo. All of them swore that in reality there was no one there.
The Venetian authorities were unable to sell the island to anyone for a very long time. But a miracle did happen. Italian Luigi Brugnaro, who participated in the auction, bought it for 513,000 euros for 99 years. According to a rough estimate, the restoration of all the buildings on the island of Poveglia will cost 16.25 million euros. What will happen to the businessman and his plans in the near future, it is still unknown. Despite the strict ban and the movies shown about the island of Poveglia in Italy, there are always daredevils who want to unravel its mystery. Stories of people who have stepped on the shore of this scary place usually coincide. Staying here causes a feeling of constant surveillance and the desire to escape as quickly as possible. Some extremists have said that they have seen people's shadows, heard their voices, and also become objects for pushes and shoves from invisible creatures. Interestingly, the stories are supported by documentary evidence. Sometime in the middle of the 20th century, a wealthy family decided to purchase the island for next to nothing to build a country house. The new owners went to inspect it and when they returned the next day, their daughter's face was badly disfigured. Doctors at local hospitals had to give the girl more than 20 stitches. The story about this was once published in several well-known Italian newspapers, but just what exactly happened there is covered in mystery. Frightened parents only babbled something about crying women and whispering spirits. Many believe that the island of Ghost Poveglia is located in Spain, although this is not true. Its location is Italy, Venice. However, let's not talk about it. More interesting is another thing. It was this place that inspired Dennis Lehane to write a story about the Island of the Damned. As you know, his story served as the basis for the creation of the movie of the same name by the great master Martin Scorsese. Despite all the creepy stories of many extreme people, it is not recommended for anyone to go here alone and without preparation.